Welcome to this deep dive.
Okay.
And today we're going to be looking at a letter from 1932. And this letter is addressed to Lord Beaverbrook.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure some people listening will know
Yeah.
that he was very prominent in the British press.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this is basically a complaint
Okay.
about some articles published in the Sunday Express.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the letter is written in defense of Aleister Crowley.
Interesting.
And he was the one that the newspaper articles were attacking.
Right.
Now, get this.
Oh.
The articles were published between 1922 and 1923.
Wow.
So almost a decade before this letter was even written.
That is interesting.
What do you think might have sparked this?
Well, I think to understand that,
Yeah.
we need to understand a little bit more about the author of this letter.
Okay.
The author is a man named Norman Mudd,
Okay.
and he describes himself as close friend of Crowley
Okay.
and refers to Crowley as a man of letters.
Oh.
So he's not just blindly defending a friend here.
Right.
It seems like he's taking a moral stand against what he sees as an injustice.
So it's not just about Crowley, but more about principles of truth and fairness in journalism.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about the accusations made against Crowley
Sure.
in the Sunday Express?
Yeah, so the accusations are pretty shocking.
Yeah.
They claimed Crowley was involved in black magic,
Wow.
had women victims,
Okay.
and even procured young girls for immoral purposes.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, and they went so far as to say that Crowley had served a prison sentence in America.
Wow, that's that's some serious stuff.
It is serious stuff.
To just print without evidence.
Absolutely.
So how does Mudd address these accusations?
Well, Mudd addresses every single accusation point by point.
Okay.
He uses very strong language.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems from the letter that he had evidence to refute each claim.
Okay.
But what's really striking is that he claims that Sunday Express never issued a retraction or an apology.
So they just ignored it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ugh.
And this really highlights the power dynamics at play back then.
Yeah.
Newspapers held immense sway over public opinion,
Right.
and it was incredibly difficult for individuals to challenge them.
Yeah, it's like they're the ones that decide what is true or not.
In a way, yes.
So this raises a crucial question then about the power of the press.
Yes.
And individual rights.
Absolutely.
Because it seems like Mudd is trying to make a bigger point here than just defending Crowley.
I agree.
He's trying to hold these powerful institutions accountable.
Yeah, you could say that Mudd's letter is not just a personal defense of Crowley,
Okay.
but also a scathing critique of how the media could abuse its power.
Oh, wow.
He's essentially arguing that false reporting can cause immense harm,
Yeah.
and that individuals face a very difficult uphill battle when confronting institutions like newspapers.
And that's something that we still struggle with today.
Yes.
Even with the rise of the internet and social media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned that Mudd goes through these accusations point by point.
Yes. Is there a particular example that stands out?
Yes, there is one accusation that Mudd really focuses on.
Okay.
The Sunday Express published an article alleging that Crowley kept 3 women as victims in Sicily.
Wow.
And they use really loaded language describing these women
Okay.
as city women for his orgies
Oh, wow.
and painting a very salacious and negative picture.
So how does Mudd address this accusation?
Well, he completely dismantles it piece by piece.
Okay.
He points out that these women were not victims at all.
Uh-huh.
They were actually professional women with their own lives and careers.
Wow.
One was an ex-school mistress.
Okay.
Another was a governess.
Okay.
And the third one was a French-American governess and a cinema actress from Los Angeles.
Wow.
And Mudd emphasizes that they were associated with Crowley by choice
Uh-huh.
and that they weren't being held against their will.
So the Sunday Express is basically trying to shame these women
Yes.
and damage their reputations
You're
just
right.
because they're associated with Crowley.
That's right. It sounds like Mudd is trying to point out their bias
Yeah.
and this willingness to just twist the facts to fit a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's implying that they had a motive for targeting Crowley?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're going to explore further as we delve deeper into Mudd's letter.
Okay, so we've got these sensationalized accusations,
Right.
this strong defense from Mudd,
Yeah.
and this underlying theme of media power versus individual rights.
No.
It seems like Mudd is trying to expose a system that allows this character assassination to happen.
Yes.
What happens next in this unfolding saga?
Well, we're going to have to wait for part 2 to find out.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll be back soon.
All right. What's fascinating is that Mudd didn't just write this letter,
Right.
right off the bat.
Yeah.
He actually took some steps beforehand, trying to resolve the issue more privately.
So he tried to reason with the Sunday Express before going public.
Exactly.
That makes sense. What did he do?
Well, first he presented a statement to the editorial board of the Sunday Express,
Okay.
directly challenging the accusation.
So he went straight to the source.
He did.
Yeah.
He was completely ignored.
Wow.
They didn't respond at all.
You'd think they would at least acknowledge receiving a statement like that,
You would think.
especially with how serious the accusations were.
Right.
So what did Mudd do next?
Well, he went even further.
Okay.
He sent a comprehensive refutation
Wow.
of all the accusations.
So like a point by point.
Yeah, with supporting documents.
Oh, wow.
Directly to Lord Beaverbrook himself.
Okay.
And again, silence.
They just completely ignored him.
Yeah.
So this letter that we're looking at,
Uh-huh.
this was basically a last resort for him.
It seems that way.
After being ignored,
Yeah.
he decided to just take the issue public.
Exactly.
That takes some guts, especially back then,
It does.
when challenging a newspaper was not a light thing to do.
Right.
So he even states in the letter that it was their lack of response that forced him to bring the matter to public attention.
That's right.
It really highlights how difficult it was back then for an individual to hold a powerful institution accountable.
Yeah, it really does.
Can you imagine trying to fight a media giant without the internet
I can't even imagine.
or social media?
Right.
No way to really amplify your voice.
No
It
platform.
must have felt like David versus Goliath.
You can say that again?
You can really sense that frustration and determination in this letter.
Yeah.
He clearly believes in what he's doing,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's probably terrifying to go up against someone like Lord Beaverbrook.
Probably was.
Now, you mentioned that Mudd's letter.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just defending Crowley.
Right.
Like, he's making a larger point about journalism and its responsibility.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, what exactly do you think he's trying to say?
Well, I think he's arguing that because a newspaper has so much influence, they have this moral obligation
Okay.
to make sure that what they're printing is true.
So, like an early version of with great power comes great responsibility,
You could say that.
but applied to journalism.
Exactly.
He really doesn't mince words about how he feels about Lord Beaverbrook and the Sunday Express.
Right.
He even calls them criminally or suicidally unscrupulous.
Yeah,
Those are fighting words.
for sure.
He's clearly very outraged
Yes.
that they would just blatantly disregard the truth
Mm-hmm.
and, cause all this harm.
Right.
It makes you wonder if it's more about defending Crowley
Yeah.
or if it's about this, stand against unethical journalism.
Right.
I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think so too.
He clearly really admires Crowley.
Yeah.
And he's obviously very loyal to him.
Right.
But it's also like he's making this bigger point
Right.
about, truth and accountability
Yeah.
and ethical behavior, especially for, people that are in a position of power and influence.
Exactly.
Now, there was this one accusation that the Sunday Express made about Crowley serving time in America
Yeah.
for procuring young girls for some nefarious purpose.
Right.
How does Mudd tackle that one?
Well, he tackles it head on.
Okay.
He basically asserts that that's completely false.
Okay.
And he dares the Sunday Express to provide any evidence to support it.
Oh, wow.
But he also points out that even making an accusation like that,
Right.
even if it's false,
Yeah.
can have these really lasting consequences.
It's like the classic mudslinging tactic.
Yeah.
Throw enough dirt and some of it's going to stick.
Exactly.
Either it's true or not.
Yeah.
But he's arguing that words have power,
Absolutely.
especially when they're printed in a widely circulated newspaper.
Yes.
And this is where his comparison to Mussolini's Italy becomes even more relevant,
Mhm.
because he's basically saying that you can't just use propaganda
Right.
and lies to silence dissent
Yeah.
or discredit people.
And that's something that's unfortunately still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We see it happening all the time.
All the time.
Where people are just targeted and their reputations are smeared through
Mhm.
misinformation and just, unfounded accusations.
Yeah.
Mudd was clearly ahead of his time,
He was.
recognizing this danger.
Definitely.
Now, he also brings up a very interesting detail
Yeah.
about Crowley's situation.
Okay.
That adds another layer to this whole story.
You're talking about Crowley's expulsion from Italy.
Yes.
Right.
Mudd reveals that Crowley was forced to leave Italy because there was this petition signed by a bunch of prominent citizens that basically called for him to be kicked out.
Right.
And Mudd is claiming that this petition was fueled by the same lies and accusations that the Sunday Express was publishing.
And that's crucial because it shows how these media narratives, even if they're false, can have these real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
On actual people's lives.
It's really chilling to think that, you know, words can be that powerful.
Words are very powerful.
So we have Mud, this dedicated friend, who is going through point by point, dismantling all of these accusations.
Yes.
Highlighting all this unethical behavior from the Sunday Express.
Exactly.
But does he just stop there?
He does not.
What does he do?
He goes a step further and calls out Lord Beaverbrook himself.
Oh, wow.
For letting this happen under his watch.
So he's not just blaming the people that wrote the articles.
Right.
He's blaming the person in charge of the entire newspaper.
Exactly.
Wow.
He basically accuses Beaverbrook of being complicit. In this libelous campaign.
He's saying that Beaverbrook is more interested in money and power.
It seems that way.
Than, you know, actually upholding ethical journalism.
Nah, he doesn't hold back.
No, he doesn't. He calls him a coward.
Wow.
For hiding behind his wealth and status.
I can see why he's so upset.
Yeah.
He feels like there's no accountability.
It's like he's appealing to Beaverbrook's sense of honor and responsibility. Like, you should be ashamed to be associated with this behavior.
And he even talks about his own sacrifices to defend Crowley.
He talks about how he had to put his own work aside and travel all the way to England.
And he experienced financial hardship because of it.
Wow. He really put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
It really shows how dedicated he was.
Absolutely.
To clearing Crowley's name and fighting for what he believes is right, even if it means personal sacrifice.
And remember, this was a time when there was no internet.
Right.
No social media.
No easy way to get your message out there.
He had to work a lot harder.
So this open letter, it was a really bold move.
It was a bold move.
It was a very public statement.
For sure.
That he was committed to the truth.
Yes.
And to justice.
It's really a testament to his courage.
Absolutely.
And his belief that, you know, truth will prevail.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to stand up to power.
Now I'm curious to hear more about how Mudd connects all of this to Lord Beaverbrook's editor.
Okay.
What role did the editor play in this?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Mudd claims that Beaverbrook's editor knew.
You what?
Knew that what they were printing about Crowley was false.
Wow.
So he's accusing the editor of intentionally spreading these lies.
So he's not saying it was negligence or carelessness.
Right.
He's saying it was a deliberate act of malice.
Exactly.
To damage Crowley's reputation.
Mudd specifically calls out the editor for targeting the 3 women associated with Crowley.
Oh, so he knew about those women too?
He did.
Okay.
He claimed that they were victims.
Right.
Forced into prostitution.
Oh my God.
To support Crowley's lifestyle.
That's insane.
Mudd calls it a foul blow.
Oh, wow.
A deliberate attempt to discredit Crowley.
Yeah.
And hurt the people around him.
Mudd even calls it a crime.
He does.
So he's basically accusing the editor of a criminal act.
He is.
And holding Lord Beaverbrook responsible.
For the actions of his employee.
Yeah, that's pretty bold.
It's a bold strategy.
I mean, he's essentially saying that spreading these vicious lies and then trying to cover them up is a criminal offense.
That's right.
And that Lord Beaverbrook, as the owner of the newspaper, is ultimately responsible.
It's a powerful indictment.
It is.
It puts Beaverbrook in a difficult spot.
Yeah.
He has to either acknowledge the wrongdoing and try to fix it, or he just doubles down.
And risks further damage to his own reputation.
And the reputation of the Sunday Express.
Wow.
It's a classic case of ethics versus power.
Right.
A dilemma that we still see today.
It's fascinating that we're seeing this play out almost a century ago.
I know, it's really interesting.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
Wondering how Mudd is going to end this letter.
Okay.
Does he, like, you know, issue an ultimatum to Lord Beaverbrook?
Okay.
Does he threaten legal action?
His closing is actually pretty subtle.
Okay.
But it's powerful.
Oh, okay.
He reminds Beaverbrook that the truth has a way of coming out.
Oh.
No matter how hard you try to suppress it.
You can try to bury it.
You can try to bury it.
But it will eventually come out.
Exactly.
That's a really powerful message.
It is.
To just leave Beaverbrook with.
It puts the ball in his court.
Yeah.
It really does.
It makes you wonder, Does he achieve his goal with this letter?
Right.
Does he succeed in exposing this injustice?
And holding the Sunday Express accountable.
We'll have to wait until next time to discuss that.
Sounds good. Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have a record of Lord Beaverbrook's response, or even if there was one.
Yeah.
But we do have this letter from Mud.
Right.
And it's a pretty courageous act, speaking truth to power.
He wasn't going to back down.
He refused to be silenced.
Even when he was up against, this huge media empire.
A giant.
Yeah. It makes you think about,
Yeah.
what does it take to stand up for what you believe in?
Especially when the odds are stacked against you.
Especially back then,
Oh,
when
God.
you didn't have a lot of the tools that we have today.
Exactly.
To amplify your voice.
His letter is a powerful reminder for all of us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
About the importance of media literacy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, being critical consumers of information.
Right.
Don't just believe everything you read.
Right.
Or hear.
Oh, absolutely. Especially now with, the internet and
social media.
Social media, and we're just constantly bombarded with information.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, and it's hard to know what to trust.
Who to trust.
Yeah.
What sources are credible.
Right, and so you're saying that we should always question what we're reading and hearing.
Discerning, yeah.
Yeah, and seek out multiple perspectives.
Absolutely.
Not just, take one person's word for it.
Don't just stay in your own echo chamber.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if something feels off.
Yes.
If you sense that there's some bias or that something is just not fair.
Then you have to speak up.
Don't be afraid to challenge the narrative.
Yeah, you might be surprised by the impact you could have.
Look at Mud.
Exactly.
One voice.
Uh-huh.
And he was going up against this massive force.
A giant.
It's inspiring.
Very inspiring.
So his letter, it was written almost 100 years ago.
I know, it's crazy.
But it's still so relevant today.
It really is.
These issues of, the potential harm from false reporting, the struggles individuals face when they try to challenge, powerful institutions.
Like big media companies?
Yeah.
The importance of ethical journalism?
All of that is still so relevant today.
It's timeless.
So what can we take away from this?
Well, I think we all have a responsibility
to
be active participants in shaping a media landscape that values truth, accuracy, and fairness.
We can't just, sit back and just consume whatever's put in front of us.
Exactly. We need to be active participants.
We have to engage.
Yeah.
We have to ask questions.
Be critical.
And hold people accountable.
Those in power accountable.
Yeah, it's a call to action.
It is.
We can't just be complacent.
When it comes to truth and justice?
We have to, be vigilant.
Yes.
We have to be informed.
Be informed.
And we have to use our voices
yes.
to speak out against injustice.
Well said.
That's what Mud did.
Exactly. And it leaves us with this question to ponder.
Yeah.
In today's world of 247 news.
Right.
And the constant flow of information.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
How can we navigate this media landscape?
Right.
And ensure that we're contributing to a more informed and just society?
That is a great question.
A lot to think about.
And that's something for all of us to think about.
I agree.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Into this really fascinating letter.
Absolutely.
Till next time. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.